Hi, Aurora. How are you? Um, I am in terrible pain. So, all of the plans I had for today, these big, huge plans, uh, I can't even do anything. It's like excruciating for me to walk. It's excruciating for me to lay down. It's excruciating for me to try to move around. So I was going to go to the nursery, and that's not even possible. So I've been looking at this new trial that's going to start, and it's about Danielle Redlick. I don't know. Hi, Ash Lewis, if you guys are into this or not. I know someone did mention it the other night about it, calling it the stepfather husband thing. And where that comes in is that hi, Captain Lee Finn, how are you? Where that comes into play is that this man, okay, who was on the Central Florida university faculty, and he has some sports ties with teams. We'll go into that, but was about 20 years older than the woman that's accused of murdering him. And apparently he at one point married her mother, but only for the purpose of the mother securing some type of health insurance. Hi, Olivia. Hi, Ginger. Hi, farm wife. Ash Lewis, did I say hi? Captain Lee. Okay. And that didn't last long. And then the daughter and this guy Michael Redlick, started dating. And I believe their marriage was about 14 or 15 years. No, I don't really use a chiropractor. I have stuff on it. I've taken a leave, and I have problems with my back for various issues, and I'm hoping that it'll be better by tomorrow. But if it's not, we'll see. Hi, well, Lisa, haven't seen you in ages. Hello, Justin. So we're going to look into this case deeply. It started jury selection today, so obviously I'm going to cover the trial. But let's start with the arrest affidavit. This started back in January of 2019, but really a year prior, she had an arrest in a Wawa parking lot. And we'll talk about that. She was coming back with some friends. Her stories changed on the night of her husband's murder. That's what she's charged with, murder. She first called 911 and reported it as a heart attack. And then she changed the story and said that he was trying to commit suicide. Then she said that he found some texts from her, from a guy to her, got very upset. She waited 2 hours to call 911. And the reason that she did that, she said that she couldn't find her cell phone. She kind of laid down to him, didn't know what to do. She was slipping on blood on the floor with towels. And then, so that's why it looks like she was trying to clean it up. She really wasn't. It was her slipping. And then she was cleaning up a little bit to try to find the cell phone, which she claimed she couldn't find for 2 hours, but then they found out she was checking dating apps and she had made other calls. So this is a really crazy case, to say the least. But I think the first thing we should do is bring this up. Let me pull this over. This is let me make this larger. The arrest affidavit. There's her picture there. It's State of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. Address 1231 Temple Drive, Winter Park, Florida. So if we want to just quickly, since we're doing a deep dive, and if you've never been with me on a deep dive, you're in for a real treat. No, I mean, people that like deep dives like it. So I hope that you will too. All right, let's take a look now. For some reason, okay, here we go. This, we'll look at this real quick. Is 1231 Temple Drive. This is public on the Realtor.com site. So this is the house where this murder occurred. While so as we read the arrest affidavit, you'll have some idea of the layout of the house here, especially master bedroom, bathroom, etc. Okay, and all right, so, and it was in this area right here, okay? You know, it's, I'm sure it was a gated community with lots of things around. And then we pull back up the, where did my arrest affidavit go to?
What's going on, loving wife?
Nothing, I'm just doing a case. Let me see now.
I'm going to try to fix my truck so tomorrow I'll be driving it.
Okay. All right, let me just pull it up again. I never know where it disappears after I move it over. It's not in the Google. Okay, so here we go. Let's pull this back over here. And make it full screen. And let me... Okay, so here we are. So this is the Circuit Court of the 9th Judicial Circuit in and for Orange County, Florida. State of Florida versus Danielle Justine Redlick. The address that we just looked at, 1231 Temple Drive, Winter Park, Florida, 32789. Race, sex, she's a white female, 5'7", 130 pounds. Date of birth, November 3rd, it's my father's birthday, 1973. And social security card number is redacted. This is the arrest warrant. Okay, so let's go to this, which she's charged with: second-degree murder with a weapon, life; tampering with evidence, F3. Okay, and on January 12th, 2019, Detective War, I believe that's how you pronounce his name, was assigned the following case regarding a death investigation. The homicide occurred at a residence located at 1231 Temple Drive, Winter Park, Orange County, Florida, 32789. The residence is within the jurisdictional boundaries of the Winter Park Police Department. Detective War possesses the 911 call that came into the Winter Park Police Department at 9:28 on Saturday, January 12th, 2019. The 911 call came from defendant Danielle Justine Redlick. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that her husband was deceased and that there had been a tragedy at her home. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick gave the communications operator her address, 1231 Temple Drive, Winter Park. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick told the Winter Park communications operator, Smith, that she believed her husband was deceased. The operator, Smith, asked why she believed that. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick started to say, he's stiff, and he might have had a heart attack. I don't know. Operator Smith asked if defendant Danielle Justine Redlick just found him. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick paused and said, "No, Actually, it happened last night. Operator Smith confirms that it happened last night. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said, correct. Operator Smith asks how old her husband is. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick answers, he's 65. The Operator Smith again asks if Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick found him this morning, reconfirms that it happened last night, and asks if Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick saw him last night and if he was okay. Just going to go back to the live stream to make sure you guys are here. Okay. All right. To make sure he was okay. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that he was not okay last night. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said, we had an altercation and he stabbed himself. And I ran and hid in the bathroom, and when I came out, I was trying to help him and saw he was lying in blood, and then I tried to help him and I couldn't. Operator Smith confirms that he stabbed himself. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states, correct, yes. I tried to help him and I woke up and I was sitting next to him and I've been trying to figure out what to do. Operator Smith confirms that they had an altercation last night. Operator Smith asks for her name and asks if there are any weapons. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick tells the Operator Smith that there is a knife. Operator Smith confirms the age of the victim. Operator Smith asks if the victim stabbed himself last night and passed last night and stated, you just didn't know what to do? Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says, correct. I believe so. Yes. Operator Smith asks if they had been drinking. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states that he was. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states that there was another altercation the night before, but she left the house and took her children with her because he was drinking then too. Operator Smith asked if the kids were there last night during the altercation. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says, no, they were not. They were not here, and they are not here now. Operator Smith says she knew Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick had said that she thought that the victim had a heart attack, and continues to ask if Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick thought he died from the heart attack or it was due to the stabbing. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states, probably the stabbing triggered it. I guess, I don't know, it's a shoulder wound. Operator Smith confirms that it is a shoulder wound. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says, right. Operator Smith asks information about herself and the victim, and Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick is able to give Operator Smith the information without any issues. Operator Smith asks Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick if she is able to move the knife away so that the units can get in there. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick asks, what now? Operator Smith asks where the knife is. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said, it's in the kitchen. Operator Smith asked Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick last name to verify the phone number. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick gives her last name and phone number. Operator Smith asks what time the altercation took place, and he stabbed himself. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states that it started around 10:30 p.m. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick claims that the victim was trying to choke and suffocate her first. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said that she went for the knife and the victim started screaming, "What are you going to do? Stab me?" Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says the victim then grabbed the knife, and that's when he did it. He made a motion. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states that the victim made a motion and she ran out of the room because she is on probation and she was scared to death. Now, remember what I told you about her being arrested at the Wawa back the year before, okay? So we'll go over that, but she's saying she was on probation and she was scared to death, so she ran out of the room. Operator Smith asks if defendant Danielle Justine Redlick went to go check on him or if she stayed there. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that she stayed in the bathroom for a while, and the victim came to the bathroom door and it was closed. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said that the victim was screaming that he was going to send her to jail. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said that she was just trying to stay away from him and heard the victim moaning and she was scared. And then she finally went to check on him. So she locked herself in the bathroom, is what her story is. He comes over there screaming, saying that he's going to send her to jail. She's scared to death in the bathroom. And so she just stays there behind the door. She hears him moaning, okay, and finally at some point goes to check on him. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that she saw the victim was out of it and she was slipping on his blood and it was heavily bloody. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said again that the victim was out of it and she thinks he was already, and she tried to give him mouth to mouth. Operator Smith asked defendant Danielle Justine Redlick if there was a reason she didn't call 911 last night. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says, after hesitating, "Yeah, I'm on probation and I was afraid and I didn't think anyone would believe me and I was just trying to get him to wake up." Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick says that she was just exhausted and fell asleep from sitting up next to him, and she tried to hurt herself this morning, and it doesn't look good for me. At that time in the call, the police arrived at the door, and defendant Danielle Justine Redlick opened the door. According to defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's version of events, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick waited 11 hours before calling the police. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick admits that she and the deceased victim were the only two people at the residence during the incident. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick admitted that she knew he was out of it and moaning. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick indicated that she did not call 911 because she was scared. She was on probation and she was exhausted. Detective Warr arrived on scene at 10:05. Detective Warr observed the scene to be a well-maintained single-family two-story residence. And just for the FYI, I believe that we covered this when this happened. This is really very familiar now. And so is the detective's name now to me. Okay. A well-maintained single-family two-story residence. And we just saw pictures of the home. If you missed it, you can go back to the beginning. There were 3 black vehicles in the circular driveway: an Audi, a Lexus sedan, and a Lexus SUV. Detective Warr noticed that the scene had been secured and no one was in the house. Detective Warr observed a white female, defendant Danielle Redlick. She was dressed in a black long-sleeve shirt and black pants, standing in the front of the garage near fire department personnel. Defendant Danielle Redlick appeared to have been crying and looked disheveled. Detective Warr noticed that both her wrists had been bandaged. It had been relayed that defendant Danielle Redlick had slit her wrists with a knife, and she would be transported to the hospital. Detective Warr observed several broken eggshells on the driveway of the residence. There were also broken eggshells inside the deceased victim's vehicle and on the outside of the vehicle which belonged to the deceased victim. A search warrant was obtained for the residence. Inside the front door, Detective Warr observed a white male laying on the floor just past the foyer close to the wall of the living room. The victim was laying on his back with his arms stretched out in a T position. The victim was wearing jeans, a belt, and socks. The victim's jeans appeared to be saturated with blood. The victim appeared to have a cut by his left eye and a wound on his left shoulder. There was no vomit on the victim's chest or face area. There were saturated towels laying near the head, right side, and right foot of the victim. Detective Warr observed that the foyer had circular marks in the blood as if someone attempted to clean up the blood. Detective Warr noticed that there was what appeared to be a bloody trail coming from the master bedroom. Detective Warr walked to the left of the front door, past the formal dining room table. Detective Warr noticed a large serrated kitchen knife on the floor at the entryway to the kitchen. Detective Warr observed that the knife on the floor had blood on it. Detective Warr noticed blood spatter about shoulder height on the right side of the entry wall and a blood smear on the left side. Detective Warr noticed that there was a pile of blood-soaked towels on the floor near the stairs. The crime scene appeared to have been tampered with. There was a strong smell of bleach in the residence. Circular markings appear to be in the blood as if someone had been trying to wipe up the blood. Bloody towels were found in a pile. At the bottom of the bloody towels, the victim's shirt was found in the pile. The victim's shirt appears to have been removed after the stabbing, as it had a matching tear in the shirt that was consistent with where the stab wound was on the victim's body. So his shirt was removed. They knew that it had been on his body when he was stabbed because the tear in the shirt matched up to the stab wound on his body. It was under the towels. There was a smell of bleach in there. It looked like circular marks, like someone had been cleaning up blood, and that the crime scene had been tampered with. Detective Warr observed a mop that had blood on it near the stairs. The detective saw a mop bucket full of pink liquid that was near the mop and stairs. Detective Warr walked through the kitchen and observed 3 kitchen knives in the kitchen sink with blood on them. Detective Warr noticed blood in a small area on the island in the kitchen. Detective Warr observed that the countertops were clean and did not have any food on them. Detective Warr walked into the living room and saw bloody footprints near the couch and the victim. Detective Warr walked on the outside of the living room and noticed bloody footprints on the living room rug. Detective Warr walked into the master bedroom and saw the blood trail that led to the master bathroom. Detective Warr noticed that the master bathroom door was all the way open and there was 1 drop of blood on the door. Detective Warr observed that the linen closet door inside the bathroom was open and that there were towels on the floor. There was blood on the baseboards inside of the bathroom door. Detective Warr observed blood on the baseboards in the master bedroom near the closets. Detective Warr noticed a folded pair of women's white and black plaid pants that had blood on them in the little hallway leading into the master bathroom. Detective Warr observed that someone had attempted to clean up the blood in the master bedroom area, and also in the living room area. Detective Warr called the medical examiner. Upon arrival, the medical examiner, investigator Ralph Calico, further examined the victim. Medical examiner Calico rolled the victim to his side. Detective Warr noticed that there were no wounds on the victim's back. Detective Warr searched the trash cans and observed the McDonald's container with blood on the outside of the container. The McDonald's container and trash bag were clear of any remnants of hamburger and fries. Detective Warr located a McDonald's receipt for Friday, January 11th, 2019, 21:43 hours, and it shows that a quarter pounder and fries were purchased. Now, this is important because she will further allege that things got out of control when he bit into this hamburger and spit it in her face. Okay? On Sunday, January 13th, 2019, Detective Warr attended the autopsy performed by Dr. Sarah Seidowitz at the Orange County Medical Examiner's Office. Detective Warr noticed that there was a superficial cut by the victim's left eye that was probably made by a sharp cutting object. Detective Warr observed bruising on the victim's left arm that was consistent with defensive wounds. Detective Warr observed that there was a wound to the victim's inner left forearm close to the wrist that appeared to be fingernail impressions with skin tear. Detective Warr observed that there was a black and blue injury located on the inside upper lip of the victim's mouth. Detective Warr noticed that a circular mark on the victim's left upper arm. Detective Warr visually observed the location of the stab wound and noted it was located in the left shoulder, several inches away from his armpit area. Detective Warr asked if there were any signs of a heart attack and was informed there were no signs of a heart attack. Okay. In determining how much time the victim would have had to survive after his injury, Detective Warr was informed the victim would have bled out approximately within 5 or 6 minutes. Detective Warr was advised the victim would have been able to walk, but would have felt the effects of losing blood at a fast rate. Some of the effects of his injury would have been lightheadedness, unsteadiness, and fatigue. Detective Warr noticed a clear mucus-like substance on the victim's pants, which, in her opinion, looked like egg whites. Detective Warr noticed that the victim's ribs were intact and there was no bruising to the center of the victim's chest commonly observed when CPR has been performed. Detective Warr also observed that the victim's mouth appeared to be clear of any vomit or substances. On Monday, January 14, 2019, Detective Warr received the District 9 Medical Examiner's case synopsis, which listed the cause of death as stab wound of torso and the manner of death as homicide. The medical examiner indicated that the stab wound was not self-inflicted. Detective Warr is in possession of the Department of Children and Families interview with defendant Danielle Justine Redlick. In the interview, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick states that there were numerous text messages between herself and the victim on the evening of January 11th, 2019. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that in the evening of January 11th, 2019, she was in the kitchen eating a McDonald's hamburger, and the victim got angry, took a bite of the hamburger, and spit it in her face. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that the victim then grabbed her arms and pushed her down on the ground. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that she was able to get up, and the victim pushed her head down on the stove and took his fist and rubbed it against her face, but never punched her. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that she attempted to break free, and he ended up putting his hands over her face, covering her nose and mouth. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that she grabbed the knife from the drawer that was close to her and held the knife in a motion that looked as if she was going to stab him. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick said that the victim took the knife from her hands, backed away from her, and began making stabbing motions towards himself. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, said that she ran to the bedroom, closed the door, and sat on the bathroom floor against the door. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, heard the victim come to the bathroom door and kept saying, "Sam, Katie." Now this is references to Cape Fear now we're going to go on to, which references a movie, Cape Fear, that they had just watched 3 weeks prior, and then got quiet. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that after a while she opened the bathroom door and saw blood on the floor. So she followed the blood trail from the bathroom to the living room where he was laying. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, realized the victim wasn't moving and badly hurt, and immediately went for her phone, but couldn't find it. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that she just kept slipping in the blood and looking to see if he was dead. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, grabbed a towel to clean up the blood and kept looking to see if the victim was deceased. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that she took off the victim's shirt to see where the stab wound was and tried to resuscitate him. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that she tried CPR and the victim started vomiting. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that she continued to push his chest and tried that for a very long time and became exhausted and collapsed next to the victim. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, remembered lying next to the victim thinking, "What am I going to do?" The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, thought about calling the police, but couldn't find her phone. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, woke up on Saturday morning and continued to clean up the blood on the floors. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, stated that she didn't know what to do and went to the kitchen and slit her wrists. The defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, said that when she started to bleed, she called 911. Okay, so let's just take a look at this, okay? There's already how many different versions of what happened. This latest version right here, she's eating this McDonald's, which was a quarter pounder, in the kitchen. The victim, Michael Redlick, according to what Justine is saying, comes in and just is angry and takes a bite of that and spits it in her face. And then he proceeds to grab her, push her down, pushes her face on the stove, takes his fist, rubs it, but doesn't punch her. She grabs a knife from a drawer closest to her, makes a stabbing motion. He grabs the knife. He makes stabbing motions towards himself. She gets scared, runs into the bedroom, into the bathroom, sits on the back side of the bathroom. He comes by the door, says something that's a reference to the movie Cape Fear that they watched 3 weeks prior. After a while, she opens the door. She follows a blood trail all the way out towards the living room where he is. She lays down next to him. She doesn't know what to do. She'd like to call, but she can't find her cell phone. She's thinking, what should she do? Okay, she claims that she tried CPR. She did it for a long time. This is just crazy, okay? But then finally she decides that she's going to go into the kitchen and over the sink she's going to slit her wrist. But as soon as she starts bleeding, then she decides she should call 911. Winter Park paramedic firefighter Childers stated that he was asked to look at the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's wrist because she had lacerations to both wrists. Childers stated that defendant Danielle Justine Redlick told him that she cut her wrists 30 to 45 minutes prior to their arrival. Let's see. Childers said that the wounds were no longer bleeding. Childers stated that defendant Danielle Justine Redlick told him the victim had punched her several times. Now the story's changing again. Childers observed a light-colored bruise on defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's left upper arm. Childers said that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, asked to go back inside the home to see her husband. Detective Moore obtained a search warrant for defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's cellular phone. An extraction was conducted on the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's cellular phone. Despite the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stating that there were text messages between her and her husband leading up to the events, there were no text messages found at all between the defendant to the victim. It appeared the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, had deleted all messages between her and her husband before calling the police. A search warrant was obtained for defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's account on a dating application named Meet Mindful. According to the records, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick had been reviewing her messages on the application on Saturday, January 12, 2019, at approximately 7:22 hours, approximately 2 hours before calling the police. Detective Moore obtained a search warrant for defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's medical records. The medical records toxicology report shows a greater than 10 mg DL alcohol level in defendant Danielle Justine Redlick when the blood was collected on January 12, 2019 at approximately 11:28 hours. The collection of blood was taken almost over 13 hours from when defendant Danielle Justine Redlick indicated her husband had died. She still had alcohol in her system. She had indicated to 911 that only her husband had been drinking that night. She additionally was not permitted to possess alcohol while on probation. It should be noted that a large number of empty wine bottles were found in the outside recycling bin at the residence. Witness 1 saw defendant Danielle Justine Redlick the evening of Friday, January 11, 2019, at a youth football game prior to the incident. Witness 1 stated that the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick arrived at approximately 20:05 hours after the game started and by herself. Witness 1 stated that when they were leaving, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick started yelling at her son and was angry about her son wanting a haircut. Witness 1 said that the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick and the deceased victim have a very on-again, off-again relationship. Witness 1 heard defendant Danielle Justine Redlick say, "It's been a weird night." Witness 1 has had past experiences with defendant Danielle Justine Redlick. Witness 1 states that she has seen defendant Danielle Justine Redlick where she just turned. Witness 1 explained that she went out with defendant Danielle Justine Redlick one night and after about 5 drinks, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick switched. In this incident, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick started to swing her fists at witness 1 for no reason. Witness 1 had to call the police. Witness 1 stated that on the evening of January 11th, 2019, the night of Michael's death, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick had that same look in her eyes as when she began punching at witness 1, and thought the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, was in that type of mood again. Witness 2 stated that the victim used to share information regarding his marriage to the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick. Witness 2 described the relationship as rocky. Witness 2 stated that the victim would tell Witness 2 that defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, had outbursts and exhibited anger. Witness 2 would tell the victim that it wasn't good. Witness 2 said that the victim used to say, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick is crazy. But as long as I hide the steak knives, everything will be fine. Okay, so this is allegedly what the victim, Michael Redlick, who was murdered that night in January of 2019, said to a friend, witness 2, that Danielle's crazy, but as long as I hide the steak knives, everything will be fine. Witness 2 stated that there were heated arguments throughout the relationship, and Witness 2 said that he knew the victim, Michael, and the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, were living in separate houses. Witness 2 said that the victim told him that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, had a drinking problem. Witness 2 said that he had talked to the victim in December and knew the victim had moved back in. Witness 2 joked around with the victim, Michael Redlick, in December and asked if he was still hiding the steak knives. Witness 2 stated that the victim told him, "Oh yeah." Witness 2 knew that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, would throw things at the victim and had an explosive personality. Witness 2, hey Chickadee, how are you? Good to see you back. Thank you for becoming a deputy Rambler. Witness 2 knew that the defendant, Danielle Redlick, would throw things at the victim and had an explosive personality. Witness 2 stated that the victim never hit defendant Danielle Justine Redlick. And Witness 2 stated that when the victim talked about divorce, when Michael talked about divorce, it seemed like it was just a toxic situation for the kids to be around. 1 minute, I gotta grab a drink here because my throat is dry. Sorry guys, I had to get a drink. Okay, so now we have, where were we? That had a drinking problem. And that she moved back in, he was still hiding the steak knives, right? And that she would throw things, had an explosive personality, and that the victim, Michael, had never hit Danielle, and when the victim, Michael Redlick, talked about divorce, it seemed like it was a toxic situation for the kids to be around. It should be noted that at the time of this statement, Witness 2 had no information regarding how the victim died. The news reported a suspicious death, and common friends were told he died of a heart attack. Witness 3 stated that she had previously observed the victim, Michael, with a black right eye. Witness 3 stated that either on Friday, January 4th of 2019 or Tuesday of January 8th of 2019, the week of the murder, she observed bruising on the victim, Michael's, arm. Witness 3 said that the bruising observed looked like 4 fingerprints on his forearm that were purple and blue. Witness 3 did not ask about the bruising on either occasion. Other witnesses have come forward with statements regarding defendant Danielle Justine Redlick being violent towards the deceased victim in the past and knew she had a drinking problem. On January 28th of 2019, about 3 hours after her husband's funeral, Detective Warr received a call from defendant Danielle Justine Redlick. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick was calm and insistent that she wanted her cell phone back and seemed annoyed that this detective was not releasing her phone to her. In researching any prior contacts with law enforcement for either Mr. or Mrs. Redlick, the following was obtained. And just so you know, it is very common procedure, and it is done. It's routine to always check for prior law enforcement, children's protective services calls. That's all checked when something, of course, like a homicide happens with a couple, with a family. On February 4th, 2018, the deceased victim called 911 stating that defendant Danielle Justine Redlick was a danger to herself and to others and he needed the police. This was around 11 months prior to the murder. Winter Park Police Department arrived and the deceased victim told officers the defendant Danielle Justine Redlick had been drinking. And there was a verbal argument, but she was asleep now. On January 26, 2018, Seminole County Sheriff's Office arrested defendant Danielle Justine Redlick for battery on officer, firefighter, resisting officer with violence, and disorderly intoxication. The SCSO deputy listed defendant Danielle Justine Redlick as the primary aggressor who started a verbal argument and became physical. At one point during the encounter, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick was being treated by SCFD. During the treatment, defendant Justine Redlick became more aggressive, yelling vulgar comments, pushed the paramedic, and attempted to punch him. The SCSO's deputy attempted to have defendant Danielle Justine Redlick sit down so he could be treated. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick started yelling and pushed the deputy. The SCSO's deputy stated that he placed both hands on defendant Danielle Justine Redlick's shoulders to keep her seated. The SCSO deputy said that defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stood up and lunged at him again. While 2 SCSO deputies were trying to restrain defendant Danielle Justine Redlick, she attempted to bite one of the deputies on the hand. On October 3rd, 2016, Winter Park Police Department met with defendant Danielle Justine Redlick about a verbal argument between herself and the deceased victim, Michael Redlick. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick stated that the deceased victim pushed her and she needed it documented for her court proceedings. This is a little less than 3 years earlier this is happening, okay? The Winter Park Police Department officer stated that while she was trying to obtain necessary information from defendant Danielle Justine Redlick, the defendant refused to write a sworn written statement and began to get upset. The WPPD officer said that defendant Danielle Justine Redlick became progressively more upset and refused to speak to the officer, abruptly leaving the building. On June 18th, 2016, Winter Park Police Department was patrolling the area and came in contact with defendant Danielle Justine Redlick at North Park Avenue and Lincoln Avenue. The WPPD officer completed a Marchman Act and Crisis Intervention Tracking Report on defendant Danielle Justine Redlick, which states that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, was disorderly and disruptive with her behavior. She was belligerent and had violent behavior towards others. Based on the aforementioned, Urapian believes that probable cause exists to prove between that January 11th, 2019 at 21:50 hours and January 12th, 2019 at 9:28 hours, defendant Danielle Justine Redlick started an argument with the victim, armed herself with a cutting instrument, as evidenced from the autopsy report and her own statements to 911, and stabbed the victim, which resulted in his death. Defendant Danielle Justine Redlick then attempted to clean up the crime scene and deleted pertinent information off of her cellular phone, knowing an investigation was about to follow, and in doing so tampered and contaminated the crime scene, thus showing that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, committed an act imminently dangerous to her husband and evidencing a depraved mind regardless of human life. Even after stabbing her husband, she admitted to not rendering aid while he was moaning and out of it while he died. Additionally, she waited 11 hours to call for assistance after tampering with the crime scene, knowing that a death investigation was forthcoming. Based upon my investigation, Urapian has probable cause to believe that the defendant, Danielle Justine Redlick, committed the aforementioned violations of law and requests the issuance of an arrest warrant. Detective Pamela Warr, sworn to and subscribed, the date of the 5th of February, 2019. So that's the arrest warrant. Now, let me go to this was a news release from the Winter Park Police Department saying that on this is January 14th. Remember, the incident was the 11th. On Saturday, January 12, 2019, at approximately 9:30 a.m., officers of the Winter Park Police Department responded to 1231 Temple Drive in reference to a deceased male. The circumstances surrounding the incident are still under investigation. At this time, there are no suspects that we are actively trying to identify, and there is no danger to the surrounding community. No additional information is available at that time. And then there was another news release, okay, and this time it says on January 12th of 2019 at approximately 9:30 a.m., officers from the Winter Park Police Department responded to 1231 Temple Drive in reference to a 911 call for an unresponsive male. Officers arrived at the residence and discovered a male subject that appeared to be deceased. The male subject was subsequently identified as Michael Redlick. After an extensive investigation, detectives from the Criminal Investigations Division obtained a warrant for Danielle Redlick for the following charges: second-degree murder with a weapon. I thought you were fixing your trunk. Tampering with evidence. Mrs. Redlick was arrested on the warrant this morning and is currently being held at the Orange County Jail. Okay, now, let's see here. Okay, so let's look and talk about an interview that she had at the hospital with detectives. So detectives went to the Orlando hospital, and Danielle Redlick refrained from describing how her husband's death inside their Winter Park home played out the night before. but she made clear that she viewed it as the bloody end to a marriage that had been falling apart. And I quote, and this is her, "He found a text from another man to me." This is what she said January 12th at Advent Health, Orlando. "We had some issues, and last year he basically cheated on me. And it was a big, long, drawn-out thing. And we finally came around to living together again and possibly trying to work it through. But I think that really wasn't happening. In my mind, it was inevitably going to probably separate again." Hours earlier, Redlick called 911 to report the death of her 65-year-old husband, Michael Redlick, a University of Central Florida faculty member. Police say she initially claimed he may have had a heart attack, later said that he stabbed himself with a kitchen knife during a fight between them. Recordings and records from the investigation were released by the Orange Osceola State Attorney's Office because they're public record. The evidence shows detectives probed deeply into the couple's rocky relationship in trying to piece together their case. Prior to killing, Danielle Redlick had been swapping messages with a man named Mark, who she met on Meet Mindful. Meet Mindful is a dating app. Records provided by Meet Mindful to authorities, which were among the documents released, showed the messages continued until days before the killing. Redlick and the other user had matched a month earlier on this dating app, and they began texting each other. They chatted about hiking, holiday plans, and their personal histories. In looking at their final messages, their final texts, they were about going on a hike together. And Danielle joked that she'd take her phone in case you're really bad company, meaning that she'll just go search up another suitor on Meet Mindful. "Totally joking," she texted. "I say that easily because I don't imagine that would happen based on our conversations so far in this little green text box." And that she texted to him on January 8th, just 3 days before her husband, Michael, was murdered. Now, in her interviews with detectives, Danielle said her husband was drunk, belligerent, and that he was following her around the house after discovering those texts with a man on January 10th. She said that she locked herself inside the bathroom, but he broke down the door. Another story. That argument upset the couple's 2 children, causing the 15-year-old to pour her father's vodka out down the drain, I suppose. And Redlick said she left. She was going to get away from her husband's tantrum. I said, you may not want to pour all that out because I need him to pass out so I can come home at some point. That's what she said to her daughter, who was pouring out the vodka, allegedly. But remember, she also told the 911 operator that her children weren't home. You see how many different stories? Eventually, her 10-year-old son texted his mother and said his dad had passed out. She then, Danielle said, returned home and went to sleep. The next day was tense, with Michael sending his wife snide texts. She said she hoped that they could hash things out after he got home from work, but he just started spewing. So I said, okay, you're not ready, so maybe let's just give this another day or two. I didn't realize how much rage was going on there. So now I believe now we are at the 11th, which would be the day of, or this is the 10th and the 11th. trying to follow this timeline here. After getting home from the Suns football game, so this is now the 11th. Michael allegedly poured himself another drink, and Danielle says it just started from there. This is all according to her interviews that were released, okay? As a matter of public record. She didn't want to talk about the details, of course not, because she's lying. Explaining that she wanted legal representation because she was on probation from a January 2018 arrest in Seminole County for charges of resisting an officer without violence and disorderly conduct. She said that the arrest came soon after she discovered her husband had been cheating. She said she found a bunch of emails of him carrying on with another woman, and it just crushed me. And I went out one night with some strangers, and I ended up in trouble. That's the Wawa incident, okay? Detectives also interviewed the daughter, who said that Danielle and Michael Redlick had vastly different personalities. Her mother, she said, was laser-focused on work, while her father was more laid back with a sarcastic side. Their personalities, so different, led to arguments, some of which became physical, according to their daughter. Her daughter recalled seeing a mark on her father's face one time that appeared to have been left by a ring. The daughter said that she thought her father had also been physical with Danielle a few times. And I quote the daughter saying, "When stuff would occur between my parents physically, when they were arguing, it's because they just both had very extreme viewpoints on certain things. Typically, when the daughter would stay at a friend's house, she would be picked up first thing the next morning. January 12th was different." She told a detective that Danielle sent her daughter a text message at 10:17 a.m. and said, "Hang there for a while. I'm dealing with stuff here. Best not to come home for a bit." So her daughter was gone that night. The couple's 10-year-old son told the detective his parents weren't at his flag football game the morning of January 12th, and he had slept over with a friend the night before as well. So the children were not home, thank goodness. And they were not home for that fight that ended with his father's death. Coach approached the child and told him fire trucks were at his house. "That got me worried," the little boy said. He began crying when recalling his parents congratulating him after another football game the evening of the killing. His father came up to him and gave him a hug, he said. The boy then matter-of-factly began describing the tension that had built up in his home. He said he'd seen his parents pushing and sometimes scratching each other. He said he would see cuts on his dad and described his parents as both alcoholics. According to a timeline compiled by the detectives, the couple's fatal fight began about 10:30 p.m. on January 11th. And 22 minutes later, Danielle Redlick dialed 911 on her iPhone but canceled the call. At 7:22 the following morning, she opened her Meet Mindful app, and within a minute, she began using her phone to research suicide, searching for slitting wrists, how to slit wrists, and how long does it take to bleed to death after slitting your wrists. She called 911 to report her husband's death at 9:28 a.m. Police arrived to find her with slash wounds to both wrists. During her 30-minute interview with detectives at the hospital, Danielle said her primary concern was her children. "I'm really worried about them," she said. She wanted to be there for her children when they found out their dad was dead, but that wasn't possible because doctors were considering whether to hold her under the Baker Act. Baker Act is a Florida law that allows people who are considered dangerous to themselves or others to be involuntarily committed. Redlick was also worried that her husband's death would impact her children's schooling. Do you think, Danielle? Wow. They both have so much going for them, she said. The detective asked Redlick whether there was anything she wanted the detective to say to her children, and she said that their mother is thinking about them. And here's a picture of the house from that time. We looked at the house on Realtor.com. So, yeah, okay. Now, she made an initial appearance before a judge. The arrest affidavit describes the night of violence, which we read. Court records show she tried to divorce her husband, Michael, last year. Okay? So she initiated a divorce with her husband in 2018, but a judge denied her petition, saying her husband was not properly served with divorce papers. So she dropped the ball on that, and so it didn't go through. According to the affidavit, she told detectives that she and her husband got into an argument after he saw her eating a burger. She claimed her husband bit into the burger, then spit it in her face, and she also said that her husband stabbed himself to death. Investigators began questioning her more. Her story began to change, and it quickly unraveled. She waited more than 11 hours after Michael was stabbed before calling 911. Phone records showed she went on a dating site, Meet Mindful, 2 hours before she notified police about the tragedy that occurred in her home. The home reportedly smelled like bleach, and the county medical examiner's office determined that Michael's stab wounds did not appear to be self-inflicted. The affidavit also said that she had alcohol in her system at the time. The 45-year-old mother of two was then charged with second-degree murder and tampering with evidence, and she could face up to life in prison. Now, her husband was a UCF faculty member, and let me go over here. Regarding that divorce, on February 4th of 2018, about a year prior, there was a call for service regarding a verbal disturbance at the Redlick's home. A little over a month later, a petition for the dissolution of marriage was filed in Orange County Circuit Court by Danielle Redlick. The document described the marriage as irretrievably broken. She claims, remember, that he was having an affair. There were court documents obtained from witnesses, people that were close to the Redlicks, that described the marriage as on again, off again. A family friend described the relationship as rocky and toxic for the kids to be around. The same friend also told police that the victim, Michael Redlick, would say his wife, Danielle, is crazy, but as long as I hide the steak knives, everything will be fine. Now, one of Michael's colleagues, Dr. Richard Lapchick, quite a last name, Lapchick. They were colleagues at the University of Central Florida, DeVos Sport Business Management Program. Lapchick said Redlick was known affectionately as Red by students, and that he'll be sorely missed, and had a big heart for helping students. And I quote him saying, Mike was an integral part of the team that worked with the students to make them feel that they were going to fulfill their dreams. He pushed them hard and made them believe in themselves. He said his heart goes out to the Redlick children. To have them be in the situation now, having lost their dad, I think that one thing everyone appreciated about Mike more than anything else was the affection that he had for his children. And let's put a picture of Mike up there, the victim, who specialized in sports management at UCF. That first 911 call, in one call, she can be heard on the line with the dispatcher saying, he's stiff, he's wounded, he might have had a heart attack, I don't know. She went on to change her story as the call progressed. Okay, I'm trying to see if there's anything else we should talk about here about this. Trying to get to the here's another look at her, like going gray. And when she was in the hospital, she declined. The next thing we're going to talk about is she declines a plea deal. Okay, she was given. Hold on, I'm going to cough for a second. Sorry, I have to get another drink here. I've got my drink. Let me just take a drink here. I never pause to take a drink. I need to do that. Okay. So the state offered Danielle Redlick 120 months of jail time in exchange for entering a guilty plea to manslaughter charges. So they offered her this plea deal, 126 months. Of jail time in exchange for entering a guilty plea to manslaughter charges. And what do you think she said? No, she said. $126 months. She has 2 children that have no father. And she declines the plea deal. 126 months. So that's okay. It's a little over 10 years, but she denied the offer. So the case goes to trial, which is starting right now. Today was the first day of jury selection. Trying to see if there's anything else here on it. That, okay. Okay, let's look over at Her children could testify against her in an upcoming trial, which is what was said in 2019. Now, January 21st, 2022, there was a hearing. That is when you see what Danielle looking like in that gray-haired photo, okay? And attorneys are expected to fight to have certain statements and medical records tossed out and redacted. Both the prosecution and the defense discussed several phone calls being redacted. According to the arrest warrant, she called 911 the day after she had a fight with her husband and told the people, that the operator, that he stabbed himself, right? Okay. So let's go back to her hearing, because we're going to go back and get up till today. So at her hearing, this is the January hearing. That's her in January. We also want to know about her house, her children, what's going on, right? But here's the funny thing that a lot of people didn't know. There's a little bit of a twist in it, but it really doesn't. So this happened in January. In about June, they're talking about Michael Redlick being married to Danielle Redlick's mother. But that was because you're going to see here of insurance. So friends revealed that Michael's second wife was actually Danielle's mother. Michael married Danielle, who was 20 years younger than him, after her mother died of cancer. Danielle's mother was dying of cancer when they were dating. She had terrible insurance. Now, authorities think that Michael married Danielle's mother to help her get access to better health care. And so that is what happened there. But now you're just hearing killing of stepfather, husband, okay? Because you know how things get. Is it a strange situation? Yeah, it is. Should the case be focused on that? No, it shouldn't be. But who knows if the defense is going to use it as some kind of strategy of abuse, brainwash, whatever. Okay. So after the mother died, the friend that said this told authorities that Michael began a relationship with Danielle and then married her. Then they had their 2 children. Let's go back to, let's see. So jury selection began today. 65-year-old Michael, and they called him Redlick, fatally stabbed in his Winter Park, Florida home. January, it was 12th that she made the call, 2019. Danielle, 45. Michael, 65. We know what she claimed, the hamburger, all of that stuff, the 911 calls. And we went through all of that in the arrest affidavit. The police, smelling the strong odor of bleach, discovered the bloody towels, the shirt that was taken off, all of this stuff that showed that she contaminated the crime scene, allegedly. And there was a 3-week investigation. Police determined they had enough evidence to show that Michael's wounds to his torso were not self-inflicted. She was arrested. On February 7th of 2019, Danielle was charged with murder and trying to conceal evidence. Neighbors told the police the couple had a rocky relationship and they fought often. The same neighbors saw Michael move out of the family home several times. According to Michael, he moved out so the children would not see them fighting. The couple's children, 15-year-old girl and 11-year-old boy, were not home at the time. They told a family service official that their mother was usually the aggressor during the fights. They felt the couple's relationship improved until several days before Michael was killed. The boy told officials he knew something wasn't right when his parents didn't show up for his baseball game the next day. I believe it was football. Now, a search of Michael's computer yielded approximately 77 emails with his wife and other emails of interest. In one email, Michael wrote to a friend, "My family is scheduled to move here in December during winter break unless Danielle kills or divorces my arse. Neither is beyond possibility." That was said in there. During Danielle's first court appearance, her then private attorney, Charles Frederick, stated all evidence was circumstantial and his client had acted in self-defense. She was barred from unsupervised contact with her children. Now, Danielle's mother was suffering from breast cancer. Her name is Kathleen Aquino. She was married to Michael to help her get better health insurance. After Kathleen's death, Michael reportedly fell in love with Danielle, who was 20 years his junior. And again, I'm going to say we did cover this case when this case happened. Danielle and Michael were married for 17 years. So jury selection began today. We will cover the trial. I could write down right now that I think she will be found guilty. You could put down what you think. So we've done, I think, a really good part of the deep dive here to get up to speed on this. And let's see how jury selection, if we can get a start, if it's going to start tomorrow, it's going to start Wednesday, whenever. Let's see when this is going to start here, this trial with testimony, because officially with the jury selection it started. And that's how we ran into that lovely stuff that Jeanette loved to keep bringing up with the Johnny Depp trial. Right, Jeanette? So let's see. Okay, jury selection began, and let me go over to this one. Let's see how she's doing. She, of course, pled not guilty. Her attorneys say she acted in self-defense when her husband tried to strangle her. Let's see how this is going to be with where'd they get with the juror selection. Let's see. Okay, so I'm looking at one of the reporters that was there, said that the judge, who's Davis Wilson, is now excusing 13 jurors who have been removed throughout the morning from the panel of 50. Attorneys and the judge agree to remove 12 more, mostly for financial hardships. That leaves 25 jurors on the first panel. The panel still has to be questioned on media exposure. And then a group of 5 potential jurors was pulled aside to ask them about media exposure. Only 2 said they were familiar with the 2019 case. The first juror who heard about the case said he learned about it while looking up crime stats in Orlando neighborhoods. He was buying a home. He doesn't seem to know any of the details, though. The juror said he hasn't formed a fixed opinion on the case. Another juror said she heard about the case on the news and next door. My understanding is there was a possible domestic violence issue in which a wife retaliated against her husband. She says she has not formed an opinion on the case. One juror says she exposed herself to media coverage this morning when she saw news trucks outside the courthouse and looked up while they were there, where she read an entire article about the trial. She said it won't affect her opinion on the case. Only 8 jurors out of 25 said they were exposed to media coverage on the Danielle Redlick case. None of it was significant enough to remove them, so all 25 jurors will return Wednesday at 9 a.m. A new panel of potential jurors will be called tomorrow. So it was done for the day. Before recess, the judge ruled to remove portions of jail calls Redlick made to her sister, where she references a plea offer. Prosecutors said they are going to allege a serious and intentional discovery violation tomorrow regarding a defense witness. So it is not starting tomorrow. They still have jury selection. New jurors will be called tomorrow. So testimony will not be starting tomorrow, but we'll still be covering what's going on in this serious and intentional discovery violation, because that is important, right? And let me get back to something over here. So that's about the size of it, I think. Is there anything else that you guys think that I should have covered in this initial deep dive before the trial? Let me know right now. Hi, Karen H. and everybody. Did you guys feel that that was thorough enough, or did I miss something that you wanted discussed? I noted, yes, I know you mentioned it, Jeanette. I know you did, and I did make a mention of that, but I did also cover this case back when this happened in 2019. I mentioned this case before others. Didn't know. Okay, Jeanette. Jeanette, it's not a contest. But thank you. It was thorough. Okay, I guess she's referring to another time, Jeanette. What is going on? Jeanette's really... But did we all, not only me? I don't even know what they're talking about. Hi, JD. Hi, Snow Remover. Okay, well, you can go back to the beginning, JD, and I go through the arrest affidavit, which will give you a really good look at what's going on. It's going to be a good one. Okay. Hey, Jenny D1. Hi, Tracy Thomas. Yeah. Rewind later, and when we go through the arrest affidavit, and you'll get a lot. Can you? Hi, Janae Ann. You never found the membership link, I see. I don't know. Are you? Because poor Rowdy Bob can't find it either. I don't understand. If you can't find it, it's so weird. Can you please say what her motive was? Well, she's claiming now it's self-defense and that he was angry that he found text. She claims that he cheated on her a year before. She claims that he found texts from men. Go back. Did you go back and listen from the beginning, Janae? Because it's not just cut and dry. There's a lot of changing stories and everything. You should really listen to it from the beginning. From the beginning. Did I say beginning? Beginning. All right. So I'm just looking if anybody needs... Yeah, JD, I think it will be. And why am I in top chat again? Because I'm not seeing everything, obviously. And for those of you that asked about my back is excruciating. I'm not even, it's painful to even walk. I just put more of the stuff on. Well, they weren't divorcing because she was the one that filed, but it didn't go through because she didn't follow up on things she had to do. So there was no impending divorce papers or action yet. So that wasn't it. They had been living on, and they were on again, off again couple, but that was what it was. So she was on that dating app, that Meet Mindful, and talking with that guy that she was going to go hiking with. So it could be that she was intending to want to move on with her life in a fast way, didn't want to deal with a freaking divorce. Who knows what she was telling this guy, right? And maybe having her husband out of the picture quicker. I don't know. All right, but I will talk to you guys later. Thank you for watching. You're a bit lost. How are you lost, Jeanette? Anyway, I'll see you guys later. Yeah, but he had said that if he just keeps her away from the, if he keeps the steak knives away, she'll be okay. Look, I have a bite on my face. Ow. All right, but I'll see you guys later. Love you, and please share this out. That would really be helpful. Okay, and thanks so much.